So after that, I started reading the Bible, couldn't put it down. And a couple years later, I ended up at a conference where this man, Charlie Tremendous Jones, is speaking. Have you ever heard of him before? Charlie T. Jones, T for tremendous. And he has this saying, you'll be the same today as you'll be 5 years from now, except for the people you meet and the books you read. But he doesn't say it just like that. He says it in a different voice. It sounds more like this. First of all, let me tell you where I am. I'm sitting in the very front, and my wife is sitting next to me, and there's 3,000 people in the auditorium. And he's up there, and Charlie's about 6'4", just this big guy, and he's looking at people, and he's going like, you'll be the same today as you'll be 5 years from now, except for the people you meet and the books you read, you know? And he goes, all of a sudden he goes, and I know you're out there, and I'm going to find you. And the next thing you know, he's like a gorilla, and he jumps off the stage. It's about 4 feet high. He jumps off the stage, and he's down there looking at all the people, and he goes over to this guy sitting there with a suit on and tie, and the guy is sitting just like this, and he slaps the guy's hand off his face, and he gives him, he goes, sit up like a man, you thumbsucker. And the guy just sitting there paralyzed, and he walks by, and there's another guy sitting down in the front, and he grabs his ankle. The guy had his leg crossed like this. He grabs his ankle, and he pulls him right out of his seat. And the guy's laying there on the floor. He goes, sit up like a man, you woman. The guy gets up, and he's like, what on earth has just happened? And Charlie's going, and he gets mad, and he goes, no, not you. He goes, but I'll find you. He goes, no, not you. I'll find you, though. And then he goes through the row, and he's like grabbing these guys, and he's like manhandling them, and like, no, not you, you know. And next thing you know, he goes by, and he says, I know you're out there. And he walks by me, and it goes like this. He goes, and he grabs my elbow like this. Next thing I know, I'm airborne. You know, he lifts me up, and he brings me up on stage in front of 3,000 people, and he says, young man, what great Christian literature you're reading in your life? And I looked at him and going like, Christian literature? The Bible, Mr. Jones. He goes, that's good. He says, but I want to know biographies you're reading. I want to know who your mentors are. Who's inspiring you to live for Jesus Christ? And he spun me around and he goes, tell these people right now, what book were you reading last month? What book were you reading last week? And what book were you reading last night? And he starts shaking me like this. He goes, tell these people right now. And the only thing I can think of at that moment was, I like your hat, I don't like your hat, go dog go. It's the only book I remember reading with my mom when I was a kid. And he looked at me and he goes, I don't know how I pick you losers out every time. And he spun me around. He goes, I'll see you later. And I looked at him and I said, you will never see me again. I go back to my seat and everyone is hysterically laughing like crazy. I mean, they think this whole thing is staged. And my poor wife is down there and she's crying her eyes out because she's laughing so hard. This gets worse. The thing ends. And I'm like, Debbie, I'm going to go out the side door. You go out the front door. I'm not going anywhere near that lunatic. And I'm like, and I get over to the side door, and these guys are sitting there like bouncers. They're going like, no one goes out these doors. I said, I'm going out this door. He goes, Mr. Jones said, don't let anybody out any of the other doors. They got to go past him. I said, this is a fire exit. It's illegal to block these doors. I'm going out this door. He goes, you're not getting by us. And I'm like, I cannot believe this. So I'm hiding behind people. I'm ducking so he doesn't see me. And he's on his tiptoes looking for me, and all of a sudden he sees me, and he's running through the crowd after me, knocking women and children over trying to get me. Finally gets me, picks me up like a figure skater. I come down. He's got me like this, gives me the slobbering kiss on my right cheek. He goes, I love you. I said, well, I don't love you. Put me down, and you ever kiss me like that again, and I'll slap you. He goes, how are you going to do that with your arms pinned to your side? I said, Charlie, put me down. He goes, I'm not putting you down until I get your address. I said, you will never get my address. Debbie, go to New York. I'll meet you there. Do not give him our address. He goes, I'm not putting him down. I go, like, you got to be kidding me. Charlie, put me down. Debbie writes out our address, puts it in his lapel, gives me another slobbering kiss on my left cheek. He puts me down and he goes, I'll see you again. I go, Charlie, you will never see me again. You ruined my life. We get in the car. We drive from Florida through Georgia, through Virginia. I don't remember going through any of those. I'm in a state of shock. I am like paralyzed. Like, I can't believe this guy just did this to me. We get all the way to New York, Mount Morris, New York, and I get to my house, and guess what's waiting for me 3 days later? Special delivery box from Charlie Tremendous Jones. And I know there's a bomb in it. I'm not opening this thing. I open up the box, and there are 12 biographies in there. D.L. Moody, George Mueller, Hudson Taylor, Amy Carmichael, Gladys Aylward, Abraham Lincoln, John Huss. All those books are in there. I'm like, I pick up the first one, D.L. Moody. I look at the cover, the greatest evangelist of the 19th century. And then I look at the size, 3/8 of an inch. I said, I can do this. I went into the bathroom, and 2.5 hours later I emerged, and I had read my very first book. And then I picked up George Mueller. I couldn't put it down. That night I read George Mueller. And then I read Hudson Taylor. And then I learned what D.L. Moody did on his feet, George Mueller did on his knees. Did you know that George Mueller, his ministry really started when he was 71 years old. He had been starting when he was 50, but from 71 to 92, he read the Bible 4 times every year. He said that's what started his real ministry. 4 times, cover to cover, every year, 71 to 92, for 20 years. And then I read Hudson Taylor, and I learned that what Hudson Taylor did, he became like the people he ministered to. He ate like them, he dressed like them, he smelled like them. He was becoming like the people. You know, he got involved in their lives. Christianity today, we live our lives so isolated, and everyone has their little places. We don't want to get dirty, you know, and it transformed my ministry. And then Gladys Aylward and Amy Carmichael. Amy Carmichael, when she was 16, she went on the mission field. She could have been easily brought into teenage prostitution. She wanted to help rescue the girls that were caught in the sex slave trade way back then. Gladys Aylward, 200 Chinese orphan kids. She's got to take them through the enemy lines, through the valley where there's both the Chinese and the Japanese fighting against each other. And the only way she can get them water is to go through the midst of the armies. And the generals from both armies said to her, if you go through here, you will act as a shield for the enemy, and we will have to destroy you and the children. She wrote a note back with her servant, and this is what the note said. My God will fight for me. You will not touch these children. And history records that as she marched the children, her in front, through the enemy lines with tanks on both sides, both armies fled in opposite directions. And they said, this is what they saw. They saw her and the children surrounded with stainless steel tanks breathing out fire.
Wow.
That's what the angels must have looked like that day. And when I read that, I'm thinking like, this is the way Christianity should be. I want my life to reflect this. I want to live this kind of life. And ever since that moment, what Charlie said, you'll be the same today as you'll be 5 years from now, except for the people you meet and the books you read, I find it to be true. And so I think kids that, you know, when I think of kids that don't really have any real inspiration and excitement about their life and what's going on, that's all it took for me was one person to say, you can be transformed forever. You can get excited and passionate about what God's doing in your life because God is real, and He says, I will do exceedingly abundantly above all that you can ask or think. And all it takes is, Moody says, the world has not yet seen what God can do through one man, one woman, one child, wholly committed unto you. I pray I be that man, I be that woman, I be that child, I be that family.